Okay, so with that, we come to the last segment of today, which is the last few hours we have left in this hall. We've had some really compelling sessions since the morning, and I assure you the second one is, this one is going to be really exciting. Opportunities and impact of digitization, analytics, and AI. To start this session, I would like to invite the moderator, Arvind Thakur, Vice Chairman and Managing Director, NIIT Technologies. As he takes stage, let me introduce you to Arvind. He has led NIIT to be among the top providers from India. In 2012, he was conferred the prestigious Global Gold Stevie Award as Executive of the Year in the Computer Services category. Arvind graduated in engineering from IIT Kharagpur, where he received the Institute Silver Medal, and thereafter he pursued post-graduation in industrial engineering from NITIE, Mumbai. Please welcome Arvind on stage as he calls the speakers and introduces the session. Put your hands together. Arvind, yours.
Thank you, and good evening. Good evening. You know, sometime back I was in a conversation with a young tech manager at Zomato, and he was telling me that they gather petabytes of data every day. In fact, they analyze every aspect of your eating behavior, how much you eat, when you eat, what kind of food do you eat, and they really do that to deliver a superior experience. Now, this is not something new. I think in your own mobile devices, you know, you have Sri, you have Google, Cortana. I think they are all learning from the usage of your mobile devices. A little later, Zomato had a competitor called Swiggy. I think some of you must be using these services. And Swiggy has been growing like crazy. In the last 2 years, you know, they've expanded from 7 to 70 cities. And the valuation itself has gone from 700 million to about 3.3 billion. And the headcount has increased from about 15,000 to 120,000. Now, with this kind of stupendous growth, what Swiggy has turned to, they have leaned on technology, and more specifically, to artificial intelligence. So for the last 2 to 3 years, they've really been building a very strong data repository and invested in machine learning to understand from patterns, you know, what is a veg food, what are different kinds of foods. In India, as you know, we have diverse languages and colloquial methods of describing foods. So you have murgi, murga, chicken. You know, the system should be able to analyze this because in India, you know, the next 100 mobile users are going to be very different. 100 million mobile users will be very different from the past 50 million users because the next 100 million users would be less literate. The user interface would be more voice than just keying in and typing. And all these require technology to be able to sift through to provide a superior experience. Other unicorns, whether it's Flipkart, Oyo, Paytm, they have all invested in artificial intelligence technologies by either buying out companies or making very, very significant investments in this capability. Now, at the heart of AI is data. In fact, there's no AI without data. And the reason why you have AI is because you now have affordable computing, which can be applied to large data sets using algorithms. And these algorithms have been there for many years. It was just that now you have affordable computing as well as large data sets, which has enabled us to extract meaning and get machines to do things like human beings learn. So exactly the same method has been used. But as the theme of this conference goes, we're talking about the next. And in order to understand the next, what we really need to look at is what's happening in China. Because the real development is around AI, and these emerging technologies are taking place in China. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one is they have a lot of brains. Most AI algorithms are really open source and quite freely available, as most of you are engaged in this technology would appreciate and understand. So you need smart people to tweak these algorithms and deliver a good solution. So that's one aspect. So a lot of good brains, But more important, they have lots and lots of data. In fact, Chinese economy, the digital economy, is completely around mobile. Typically, in China, you have 50 times more mobile transactions than, for example, in the US, and that's the reason why advances in AI are taking place in that country. And more important, they do not have the restrictive privacy laws and other issues which most other countries have to deal with when they're looking at data. So when you have the ability to use data, it's actually a fantastic virtuous cycle. More data means a better trained app. A better trained app means more users. More users means more money. More money means more brains. More brains can apply their brains on more data and create better algorithms. So this virtuous cycle is working beautifully for China. And I think all of you have heard of the cliche phrase that data is the new oil. I also heard a very famous venture capitalist who is Kai-Fu Lee say that if data is the next oil, China is the next Saudi Arabia. So that is the power of data, and it's very central to anything that we do with respect to emerging technologies. Now, India is no different. In fact, India has half the number of smartphones that China has, but its data consumption is double that of China. And the reason for that is the amount of video streaming that happens in India is phenomenal. And with the infrastructure of players like Jio coming into place, data consumption is phenomenal. However, the quality of data is an issue. And the reason for that is the diversity that you have in this country, both in terms of cultures, language, ways of doing things. And so, generally, data is somewhat siloed, and that does not allow applications to learn on the go. So that's a bit of a disadvantage. Lots of data, but getting into a shape for it to get the apps to learn on the go is a problem. And the other thing is that the startups continue to be underinvested by risk capital, which is as compared, to the rivals in China or the United States. China has enormous government support, enormous government support, and government often becomes the LP, local partner in a VC activity. And policies in China are generally supportive rather than regulatory. And so, that's a big advantage. So we have the brain power. We have the brain power to lead in the fourth industrial revolution, which is around all these emerging technologies. But we need to get our act together on data and evolve a regulatory framework which is innovative rather than it being restrictive. So with these comments, I would like to now turn our attention to global corporations and how are they dealing with these new emerging technologies and to see how advances in data, analytics, and artificial intelligence are changing the way they do business. And for this, I'd like to call on Karenann Terrell. She is the Chief Digital and Technology Officer at the global pharma and healthcare giant, which is GlaxoSmithKline. She's been responsible for GSK's digital strategy with a remit to use technology to transform the organization. Prior to GSK, she was a CIO at Walmart. And so she'll talk, she has experience of the pharma industry, she has experience of the retail industry, and she started a career with General Motors and Daimler Chrysler, and so she has experience of the auto industry as well. So let me invite Karenann to give a keynote and share with us her experience across these segments. Karenann.
Thank you. So I want to spend a little, wow, that was loud. I want to spend a little bit of time talking first and foremost about the way of thinking and acting digitally from an organization. Any single company, and most of you are serving companies, any single company, when they think about how to use technology, in the past has looked at business process automation. We've looked at ease of experience of employees and of customers, but digital transformation in companies, especially multinational companies where we see the changing experience rapidly progressing because the customer experience, the customer digital experience, independent of your work environment, we can all conclude is changing at a breakneck pace. Customers will be served. We as individuals, it's very unregulated in many ways the way that happens, and that drives perspective, expectation, and innovation into companies. So I have 3 company and industry experiences that I've distilled personally as I've come to GSK in order to understand how do you derive a digital strategy which is deeply meaningful to help the company move at pace and understand opportunity in our business model. So here's a simple framework that I have been using that resonates at GSK. You can think of digital and data and analytics as usual. How do you take those social, mobile, cloud, analytic capabilities and basically modernize your current world? And honestly, so many companies stay stuck in this paradigm of a digital strategy. It is a better way to do compute. It is a better experience. It lowers the overall cost to serve. And certainly, it brings in a whole different set of players than we have ever dealt with before in consumer-level capability, in technology, as well as even in consulting, in high-end thought leadership. That's one area of digital. The second is in the area of reinvention, and the third is in the area of disruption. So in the language that I'm using, reinvention is the business that we are in, the core value, what our customers are paying us to do. In GSK's point, discover drugs and medicines that actually will save lives. In the car industry, develop products for transportation that engage us and move. In every one of the businesses, you can pick out what that area is for reinvention. And there, you start to see not just improvements in cost, but the delivery of superior experience. And a lot of us, I think, and I'm giving you my paradigm, a lot of us in technology have said, oh, we're going to deliver superior experience in the modernization. That is true. But it must be a radical step as we reinvent. We have to reimagine how to engage our customers. That's where we actually are thinking about our customers in the digital world and our consumers as well. And I personally believe it is in the reinvention and disruption where you get to breakthrough levels of technology, not how to use the cloud and how to engage mobile, but things that really cause you to think deeply into the opportunities for AI and blockchain, which I think are going to fundamentally shift the equation of trust and the sets of opportunity to skip steps, not just to get better at what you're doing, but to skip steps in the value chain of the company. I'll talk about it in a minute. And then finally, this concept of digital ecosystems as opposed to vendor partners, as opposed to bilateral agreements or trilateral agreements. It really starts to think about digital ecosystems. I want to spend most of my time talking about reinvention because I strongly believe that is the key to future winners. So let me talk through 3 industries very quickly, because I think your questions and our panel comments are probably what you're most interested in. So it's easy in the automotive industry to see the shift in moving from product to service platform. Whether it was the Microsoft infotainment that started to change that center console, how we thought about bringing information into cars, or whether it was Tesla and how they reinvented. It wasn't the electric car, it wasn't the how do I make a better product, it was that the product was moving to a service platform. Now, autonomy as the major topic is bringing brand new categories of players into the ecosystem as that paradigm shift. It's still transportation. It is not the transporter system from Star Trek. It is still transportation, but it's been reinvented through the transportation lens in autonomous driver control. So what about retail? And this was one that I feel very scarred still by after so many years at Walmart, because as a strong player in the retail strategy, in the worldwide retail market, fighting the e-commerce from the point of products will be sold in stores, how do we use technology to digitize that experience, against an e-commerce player who had completely disrupted and reinvented the concept of commerce, gave me a upfront, front row experience of moving from what is the right curation, what is the right pricing, how do we actually get what we need for a customer in a store at a point in time, into let's curate for everyone, to the model of let's just get everything and let people pick. And that huge reinvention of the commerce model brought into the thinking for Walmart about how do we actually reinvent the business that we are in. And I learned so much as we fought the consumer wants everything. Because in retail, the consumer wants their complete choice, they want it for free, and they want it now. And that is like that is what you are fighting on a constant basis in retail. So how do you reinvent your model? So from that consumer scale reinventive activity, I've moved to GlaxoSmithKline, a 300-year-old pharma company with a consumer healthcare business, an over-the-counter, soon-to-be #1 healthcare business, and thought, what is the reinvention digital aspect of our company? And for us, there are 4 key components of reinvention in the life sciences business that are so incredibly important. The first one is, how do you use science times technology with the culture of the life sciences business and of GSK to reinvent the innovation of our business? Number 1, instead of chemistry and bench scientists that are being enabled to move at speed, how do you think about genetically available information? How do you look at the emerging sources of information in order to do drug discovery? And that so much explains the ambition of Dr. Hal Barron running our research and development in order to drive our probabilities of success of discovery of immune-inspired medicines higher and to shorten the length of time of development. It is not about making the bench scientists better. It is about drug discovery reinvention. The same is true for us as we look at our customers in the consumer healthcare business, as we drive the direct-to-consumer business and the impact of that into the life sciences business. In the United States, the inspiration of e-commerce that we use now in the distribution of our vaccines, while it doesn't go direct to the patient, the inspiration of e-commerce reinvents the way that we think about our supply chain and demand forecasting in our business. Our patient relationships, today we sell to health systems, and the patient uses the life-saving medicines. Our ability to actually form bonds with our patients in order to understand how quickly to improve, get paid, and drive innovation in our science is necessary to reinvent how we thought about the patient in today's world. And then finally, where digital is the medicine. That's the point of view where we think about, this is the point where you think about technology and the opportunity to actually reinvent. So if computational neuroscience is the disruptive reinvention for pharmaceutical medicines that treat pain, that treat depression, that treat many other environmental diseases, that is where digital will become the medicine. So if you think about winners and losers, I would offer for your discernment the following. And this is just based on my experience in the industries. First, technology and the way that you think about the reinvention has to be directly aligned to the strategy. I believe strongly this is why I hold the dual remit at GSK of Chief Technology Officer, running all of the IT and data analytics, as well as the digital transformation for my CEO. Those two pieces together allow you to align strategy and technology. You have to embed technology into the business. What has to change in a company is not how well the technology is done, but how well the technology is used and embedded into every single business process and opportunity. It doesn't sit on the business, it actually reinvents. It's the difference between marketing using digital capabilities and digital marketing, where you start with the technology as a capability embedded. I believe so strongly, in fact, in 2013, I was at Nasscom talking about the concept of strategic partnering and how that had to change. Today, people call that digital ecosystem. That is the ability for us to form a set of multi-partnerships, embedded incentives that allow us to drive the strategy of the company and not manage one-on-one vendor relationships where we are the hub and our partners are the spoke. Very important in how we do our innovation, very important on how we do technology, extremely important in any of the innovative customer and patient relationship work that we do. And in the end, Arvind, data matters because every single bit of the reinvention journey starts with access to the data, how we actually ingest, manage that data for use, and what analytics all the way through to machine learning we are capable of from an ethical point of view. Explainable AI in our world is incredibly important when we are going to make decisions that are going to affect lives. So I think that data completely rules in the winners and the losers.
Thank you, Karenann. Data matters, and the future winners will be those where tech powers business strategy. I think that is the essence of what she said. To elaborate further, let me now call on our other panelists, Dalia Powers and Thierry Delaporte, As you come on stage, I will introduce them. So Dalia Powers is the CIO at CBRE, a commercial real estate services and investment firm serving clients in over 100 countries, making it the largest company of its kind in the world. Dalia joined CBRE recently. Prior to that, she held executive roles at USAA, Capital One, and Dell EMC. And Thierry is the Chief Operating Officer at Capgemini. Thierry has spent most of his career at Cap, driving operations in Switzerland, Singapore, Australia, Spain, and the US, before taking over as CEO of Global Financial Services SBU. And since January 2018, he has been the Global Chief Operating Officer. So let me start by posing a question to Dalia. Can you tell us how technology is embedded in the real estate industry, and how is CBRE using emerging technology to deliver a superior experience?
Absolutely. So when people think about real estate and commercial real estate, they think about just brick and mortar. In reality, real estate is very much dependent on technology. So CBRE is the largest commercial real estate company in the world. We manage over 5 billion square feet of property, and we operate in 100+ countries. And technology has been a huge enabler for us. So let me talk about one of the latest products that we released into the market. It's called CBRE Host. So CBRE Host basically was a product that we developed in conjunction with one of our largest clients. They had gone through a re-innovation of their workspace, and then they realized that, hey, they wanted to create an environment where actually their employees can find it more collaborative, more open, and help them be more efficient. And they thought that this is going to help them retain the top talent that they acquired. So we worked with them using design thinking to come up with CBRE Host, which is basically a platform that was built from the ground up on a public cloud environment using open source technologies, and allows basically the employees in the workspace to collaborate with one another. It has machine learning and AI, so it learns over time what your preferences are, and it actually personalizes your experience for you. So as an example, if you're used to booking a particular meeting room for your events, after some time that becomes the first thing that pops up when you try to book a meeting room. If you go into a new office, it knows where you're at, and it looks at your calendar and knows where you need to go, and it can navigate you directly to the room that you need to have your meeting in. If you're, for instance, in the middle of doing something and you want to get lunch, it can actually know your preferences and order lunch for you, and then when it's ready, it gives you a notification so you can go pick it up. So all of those things that make the workplace more efficient is really powered by a lot of technology and machine learning and data underneath the covers. We also use a lot of 3D for investors, and as an example, for some of our investors, literally they could be buying a hole in the ground. And we use technology to enable them to understand the art of the possible. So through 3D, we can create basically buildings for them, and through virtual reality, they can actually walk through what we created using 3D graphics. So it's really, really important for us to be on top of technology there. But we think still that in the age of AI and machine learning, people are really the ones that make the huge difference. Their creativity is just critical for us to continue to provide an edge. And as such, we're actually cooperating with Nasscom, and we're kicking off some really exciting things that we're going to be announcing in the next few weeks in terms of collaboration there.
Thank you, Dalia. Thierry, given that your organization understands the power of technology and the challenges which clients face, can you share with us what works and what does not in the context of digital transformation?
Okay, thank you, Arvind, and good afternoon, everyone. Scanning through the room, I feel like, I see a lot of colleagues from Capgemini. I suddenly worried about the productivity of Capgemini today. Anyway, it's good to feel, somehow a little bit at home. Just talking about digital transformation, what works, what doesn't work. I can't stop myself reflecting on one thing. I think it was probably 5-6 years ago, in this very same place, we were talking about whether digital is a reality for the companies. I remember probably about 3 years ago, us questioning, the real potential of cloud for the companies. So things are moving at very fast pace. I don't think anybody is questioning the impact of digital, the impact of data, the impact of, cloud, for the companies. Every single sector is impacted. We always refer to the Uber of this world to illustrate the fact that industries are being transformed and challenged and disrupted. The reality, every single sector has a digital transformation agenda. Just based on what we're observing at Capgemini, about 85% of the customers say they are driving digital transformation strategy and programs in their organization. So certainly, it's happening everywhere. Now, let's take a step back. Let's look at what can work, what doesn't work. By definition, the potential of digital being huge, it's actually difficult to identify where the priorities are. Karenann insisted on the necessity to have a strategy. And, you'd be surprised by the number of companies who believes they have a strategy around digital, but are looking at it through the technology lenses. So they have a strategy, or they feel they have a strategy, but very much based on technology. And that is a big confusion. As Karenann said, absolutely, I am absolutely clear on the fact that technology is an enabler. The transformation of digital is somewhere else. It's in the transformation of the company itself. It's the change management. That is the biggest enabler or blocker of transformation in companies. Companies have, comes with plans. They allow, different departments or corners of the organization to launch programs, initiatives. They drive digital programs here and there. And comes a point, you're exposed to one constant challenge for companies: the level of complexity that you have to deal with in the organization. That drives necessity for alignment, for strategic definition of priorities around digital. So digital transformation works when you have a strategy, when you have an alignment of the leadership, when you have the right capabilities on the ground to deploy your digital strategy, when you are being pragmatic in the way you deploy your strategy, focus on quick wins, and certainly drive coherence through your different programs. I should certainly say, pick the right partners to help you work on your strategy. And finally, make sure that you understand where you're starting from. What is the starting point of your IT environment? What is the level of maturity of your teams to embark on a transformation journey? Today, as I said, pretty every company are launching digital transformation programs. It is proven that when well executed, it's driving additional revenue growth and market share gains. but it is when there is clear definition of business case, where there is a clear definition of what is the business challenge to address. Then comes technology to play.
Got it. Thanks. Thanks, Thierry. So once again, technology is enabler, but I think needs to get embedded in the business. So let me come back to you, Dalia, on to deliver the experience that you talked about. How is data organized in your organization, and what tools, techniques, or platforms do you really use to manage, modernize, and monetize data?
Yeah, so as you said, data is the new oil. It's really an abundant resource, whereas oil is maybe declining. Our challenge with data is it keeps growing and growing, right? And with that, we have to be very clear about how we derive insights from this data. So that's the key, is to focus on the pieces of data that are going to be differentiated for you. So at CBRE, we created a data mart. So we don't get all the data as in other strategies where you collect the data and from every part of the organization and you put it in a data lake. We actually get the data that we think we need to process and derive insights from in a data mart. And we do that through using a lot of open source technologies. So we have a Kafka streaming cluster. We have Postgres for persisting the data, and the critical thing is really knowing what data that you need at what time and having it be available for you real time. We also get a lot of data from IoT devices. So around a lot of the buildings that we manage, we have different devices that measure, for instance, the consumption of electricity and see how you can optimize it. Have sensors to basically see the density within a building and try to adjust things through that. We eventually want to think that we're going to get to a situation where through IoT and through the processing of data, we can get into self-healing systems around buildings. We also do a lot of research and derive insights that we provide for our investor clients. So, for instance, we have a very strong data scientist organization that look at market trends and economic factors, and they come up with, as an example, the prediction of what a market in real estate is going to, commercial real estate is going to be like around the world. And we provide that as a service. We understand our clients' objectives, and we use data to enable them to focus on where they're going to be better off investing their dollars going forward. Again, I think at this point, we think that there's a lot of data that we can work with, and the technology is there that enables us to get insights out of it. It's what to focus on is going to be the key differentiator there.
So the sense that we are getting, Thierry, is that the AI seems to be now going beyond hype, right? So can you share with us some high-impact, real-world solutions that makes AI a reality?
Yeah. So artificial intelligence, definitely impressive. If you read the press every single day, there's an article on artificial intelligence. Media is, talking about the impact of artificial intelligence in the world where we live, in our day-to-day lives. Governments have, taken this topic as well as a priority. Very interesting to see the moves done by countries like China some years ago, driving, massive AI programs around the country. Just a few days ago, Donald Trump was commenting on the need for America to increase the speed of transformation-driven programs leveraging AI. Same thing in Europe, same thing in India. In every country, AI is becoming a big topic. We see analysts investing in AI, the big technologies, the Google, Facebook, Microsoft of this world are investing billions in artificial intelligence. So it is not a hype, definitely not. I think, as in every technology, there is the noise and there is the reality. My view is that AI is not here to replace humans, or not for a long, long time, okay? Artificial intelligence is, very specific and very deep into addressing, questions, but doesn't have the broad potential of humans. So that's the good news. But AI is a fantastic way to enable, to empower, to enhance, the impact of humans. So the way to look at artificial intelligence in a pragmatic way is the following. One, in our day-to-day lives, artificial intelligence is playing a key role in the way it can manage our health, in the way it can help us improve, the way we manage, spending of energy, managing our financials, improving the way we are driving. Artificial intelligence is everywhere. In companies, you have artificial intelligence applied to specific sectors. So take, the retail business, the way AI helps you drive, real-time pricing is extremely critical and changing the industry and the relationship with customers. If you look at industries like manufacturing, automotive, artificial intelligence has, big impact in leakage tracking or defect identification in the processes. So AI is a reality and is applied to sectors specifically. AI also has also a big potential for the way we are improving corporate processes, enhancing, enabling people take better decisions and faster decisions. Can be accounting departments identifying exceptions to proper billing of customers in order to accelerate the process. Apply to HR departments in order to track either people missing in action or people at risk of leaving the company. Apply to all sorts of corporate functions around supply chain, logistics management, and so on. So AI definitely is a reality. We see that, again. It has, again, more than the technology, AI has to address one business challenge. AI has to be, specific to one need. AI has to be implemented in a pragmatic fashion.
And there's no AI without data. In fact,
of course.
If you look at the most valuable companies in the world, they all manage data, right? So whether it is Alphabet, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Microsoft, Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, they're all managing data. So in the end, it's data which matters. So I think with those remarks, what we'd like to do now is to interact with each one of you, or some of you. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask the panel, feel free to pose those questions. Any show of hands?
We must be too close to the coffee break.
Yeah.
Ganesh, okay. We'll come to you after that.
Thank you. This is really a question for Thierry. What you just said, I think, is very positive, that AI need not be a job reducer. It can actually create new jobs. But I have a question for you. If you look at the applications of AI, at least the early days, I mean, we all talk about assistive AI and augmenting, but there is a lot of autonomous AI happening in robotics, robotic process automation. So in a thoughtful way, how would you suggest countries and even companies approach AI that it net creates jobs rather than eliminates?
So I'm going to try to respond without being absolutely sure to have understood the question. So, the first point you said, I believe you said, is absolutely true. It's very early days. A lot of companies, in fact, have leveraged AI into use case, many different pilots here and there, and are confronted to the scalability of it. And the reason why it's actually a challenge to scale it is the quality of data. It is the fundamental first step to address. As long as data are not consistent, as long as you cannot structure them in a secure fashion, it's going to be difficult to leverage AI to your benefit. So that's why I was insisting a little bit on the need for pragmatism. The success of AI works, again, when you are defining in a very strict fashion the challenge you are trying to address, the business challenge. It really starts with the business challenge. Every time we have an interaction with a customer on artificial intelligence, they all go, there is so much potential for AI everywhere. It's actually hard to know where to start. So starting with quick wins, identifying, based on the data you get, where you can start to implement it and deliver results is critical. Then the question of scalability is, I would say, the one that matters the most. If you're not able to scale your AI inside your company, it's going to be probably a lost investment.
No, my real question was that while you scale AI, how do you choose applications that do not replace manpower and actually augment or assist existing manpower?
How you choose technology?
How do you choose the AI applications that won't be automating and eliminating jobs?
So, one point that I think is important, I think you're touching a point which is really around the potential of AI, somehow the risk of AI as well. And therefore, I think we need, all in our industry, to adopt a very strict ethical policy for dealing with artificial intelligence. The necessity of transparency, the necessity of privacy, and the necessity of security. I don't think, I would never advise, to apply AI to replace jobs, okay? AI to replace job is a fantasy. You will not replace human with AI. AI is addressing tasks, is getting you to, accelerate the pace of processes, to reduce the risk of defects, of errors, is to improve the quality of your information for decision process. But AI is not here to reduce jobs. Before we are able to really get AI to think broadly like human, yes, we can do sentiment analysis, but I don't think we can have an AI that can, be creative the way we believe our people can be. Okay?
I can just add to that, Ganesh. I think the best way is to look at applying AI in places where you're not able to even deploy human capital. For example, if you look at education in rural India, or agriculture, or even medical, where you can't get people across to those places, that's a great place to start, by using these technologies. I'll come to you, Keshav. There was one person behind. Huh? After that.
Good afternoon. My question is, we've talked about a lot of digital disruption and digital transformation in enterprises. So a lot of times we mentioned that technology is right at the center of it also. So should the digital transformation be led by the technology or should it be led by the business? That's a classic question we listen in a lot of enterprises. So I want to listen your views on that.
I bet we have a bunch of different different points of view on that. I think that technologists without the business transformation simultaneously at the heart are going to invariably drive towards trying to put technology decisions to support the business without actually driving it. I think disruptors of chief digital officers who have no idea how to actually scale the reinvention are going to invariably stall out the company without being able to transform it. And even though the dual remits are impossibly hard to manage, I think that technologists need to start stepping up into transformation in order to go and do that. We're not doing that as a technology organization in leadership enough, and companies have no choice but to make two decisions about the transformation. I think the winners are going to have those things come together under single banners, because tech can't do it alone unless they actually get to being the heart of the lion of transformation in companies.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Karenann. Keshav, my apologies. I've just got a message that we have a hard stop. So thank you very much to all the panelists and to all of you for your wonderful questions.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to ask you to stay on for another moment. Arvind, I'm going to ask you to hand over mementos to all of our speakers. Modernize, reinvent, disrupt, deliver superior experiences. Our panelists from diverse backgrounds discussed how data analytics and AI can truly change the way businesses work in every sector. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the panel yet again.